I would like to welcome everyone to the noon meeting of the Kiwanis Club. Today our prayer will be led by Carrie Chopin and the song and pledge by Gerald Gilbo.
Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity to be here today, and we thank you for the gift of your truth. We ask that you help us to be tireless seekers of the truth in all that we do. We pray for our elected officials that they continue to govern us and steward us into the future. We pray for your infinite providence upon this area, especially in Lafayette, and we make this prayer in your name.
Amen.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of thy pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To start our meeting today, I would like to invite up Tom Long, our current president-elect, to give a quick introduction. So please welcome Tom Long.
Thank you, President Jason. We welcome our guests here in the Petroleum Club and those of you who are watching this broadcast on AOC to the Kiwanis Club of Lafayette. I'd like to share a little bit of our club with you. For more than 73 years, the Kiwanis of Lafayette has served the children of Acadiana in a variety of ways. Among the ways we do this is by sponsoring high school key clubs at Lafayette High and at Como High, and by sponsoring the Circle K chapter at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Lafayette Kiwanis' signature project has been to host the annual Kiwanis Football Jamboree, now in its 69th year. It involves a dozen area high school football teams and is without question the premier high school football jamboree in the state. But the ways in which Lafayette Kiwanis has left its mark on Acadiana over the years is simply too numerous to mention. Lafayette Kiwanis has constructed Park Lafayette at Girard Park, Lafayette's first fully handicap-accessible playground facility. We also helped build numerous play systems in area parks and schools, and most recently installed buddy benches at all area elementary schools. Our annual Christmas tradition, Project Magi, has for more than 40 years allowed Lafayette Kiwanis to provide homeless children of Lafayette with an unforgettable shopping experience. Kids need Kiwanis, but Kiwanis needs you. If you're interested in membership, we ask that you visit our website, LafayetteKiwanis.org, and our Facebook page. Kiwanis of Lafayette is guided by the 6 objects of Kiwanis as set forth by Kiwanis International. The 4th object of Kiwanis is developed by precept and example, a more intelligent, aggressive, and serviceable citizenship. Today's forum on social media's impact on the political process falls directly within that object. Thanks go out to Vice President Brett Bayard and Letitia Walker, who assembled this impressive panel and arranged for our moderator. Our moderator for this panel discussion is Dr. Pearson Cross, Associate Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Associate Professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Louisiana. His principal areas of teaching are state and local politics and Southern and Louisiana politics. He is a frequent commentator on political issues at the national, state, and local level, and he hosts a weekly radio program, Bayou to the Beltway, in which he interviews Acadiana's most influential officials and newsmakers. So without further ado, I'd like to turn this program over to our moderator, and let's give a warm Kiwanis welcome to Dr. Pearson Cross.
Thanks, Tom. It's good to be here. It's good to see Tom's a neighbor of mine, so you're not in shorts and mowing your lawn, which is usually how I see him, you know. We have a panel here today. It's going to be talking, generally speaking, about social media and local politics and the influence of social media in local politics. Before we get there, let me try to introduce the panel. I will not do justice by them, so this will be very short introductions, and then we'll dive into what will be the main course, which will be, of course, talking about these really important issues that have emerged in really interesting ways in Lafayette Parish recently. On my far left, your right, Michael Lunsford. He's referred to by the news media as the one man opposing the Lafayette school tax, although, frankly, in April there were many more. And he was subsequently described as tax slayer. I don't know if he's still if he's made a button of that yet, but we'll see. He resides in Brobridge with his wife and sons. We have Ian Ozan. Ian is a longtime Lafayette resident. If you're watched TV much, you've probably seen him. He's been on KATC 6 years. He has a degree from Princeton, and he is currently an executive producer at KATC TV. On my left also is Ms. Amy Robinson, who headed the Recall Brian Pope movement. She was born in Oklahoma. She works in a CPA office, and she's been in Lafayette 22 years now and very involved in local politics. On my far right, your left, would be Bruce Conk, who is familiar to most everybody from his long career in politics and in social and media in this area. He is currently the vice chair of the Lafayette Council. He's also the representative of District 6 on the Lafayette City Parish Council. And to my immediate right, your left, Amy Jones. Ms. Amy Jones is founder and chief communication strategist for Burning Stick Creative. She was born in Lafayette. She had stints in D.C. and California. She served as communications director for Charles Bustani for a time. And so that is our panel. I think we've got an interesting panel today, and I look forward to hearing what they have to say about these very important issues. Give me just a second. I don't want to stand up for the whole time, and so I'd rather sit down. And I'm going to move this, and I'm going to sit down, and then we'll start the conversation. Technical assistance, and this needs to be set up before. He made that.
Nice job, Matt.
Did you turn it off? He made that look so easy. How did he do that? Practice. That's how you get to Carnegie Hall, right? Okay, well, good. Let's just start off with a general question. Politicians are uniformly turning to social media to spread their message, some more than others. Is this a positive, in your opinion, in terms of communities? What are the positive and negative effects of social media in local communities? And why don't we start with Bruce?
When I first ran for elected office back in 2004, it was a different world back then. Social media was in its infancy. When I ran again in 2016, I took a whole new strategy because of the social media. It is so influential in every aspect of our lives, and I used it, ironically, more than any other advertising media to get my message to the constituency. Today, I depend upon the social media to provide a pulse for me of the constituency that I represent in District 6. I probably overdo it a little bit, but I routinely monitor social media 6 to 10 times a day. Because the one thing that I've learned about social media is you can't wait to respond. It spreads like wildfires in California. So you really need to have an immediacy involved in anything that might be controversial. Can you undo the initial damage? Probably not. Can you minimize it? Hopefully. And then the other way I use media, social media specifically, is to convey to my constituents the issues that I consider to be important. Because I was talking with Letitia, there's so many people out in the community that really don't share my concerns for priorities facing the community. It's just not top of mind for them, unless you're in a flooded area right now. But that's a challenge, is to keep the important issues before the community and provide some solid conversation about how to move forward.
Thank you. Amy?
I think if anybody goes to their own habits, you'll know the importance that social media plays. And I want to be very clear as we have this conversation. that there is the social media aspect of it, that is people posting and it puts their information out there that they want to push. And then there's digital media. And many people like to combine the two, but they're very different. And in terms of how does it move things, it's everything. We're going to see for the next definitely decade that very soon there will be a flip in terms of the number of dollars spent on the paid media on television. Less and less will be put in terms of television commercials. Less will be spent sending mail to your mailboxes. Instead, we can target it much tighter in what we do with our messaging from a social perspective and from buying digital media. And it defines the brand of who candidates and issues are. You're not limited to 30 seconds anymore. You're not limited to what a reporter is going to write about you and hope that they say it correctly. In fact, fewer and fewer people are relying on having conversations with reporters. You can go directly to the constituent with the message that you want them to hear. So, in terms of what is its importance, it's not minimal the way that it was a few years ago. It's not something to be dismissed the way a lot of elected officials wanted to dismiss it. It is the heart of campaigns. And I would say that in this day and age, before you hire anybody when you're running for office, your digital social team is usually what you have to have in place.
Interesting. Amy? And if I could ask you to pull your mics forward towards the edge of the table to make it easier for our sound person.
Well, when we talk about the negatives and the positives for politicians on social media, I think that the positives are that you have more accessibility to your politician, right? And then there's an accountability aspect. Once you've said something on social media, it's out there. You can delete the tweet or you can delete the Facebook post, but everybody screenshots it. And once you've said it, it's there. So there's an accountability aspect. And then you have the opportunity to challenge that whatever that person has said. So I like that accessibility and the accountability aspect of it. The negative portion of it is this atmosphere that we have nowadays of people believing things at face value and not doing their own research into facts. And so that's the dangerous part of it, and that's the negative part of it. We all have a responsibility as citizens to make sure that we're doing our research and to not take things from anybody at face value. It can fit our narrative, but that doesn't mean that it's a fact. And just because it does not fit our narrative does not mean it is not a fact. So we have to take personal responsibility and make sure that what we're reading is indeed factual. So that would be the negative aspect.
Thanks. Ian?
You just took the wind out of my sails there. You stole my answer. The problem with Facebook now is because something comes so immediately, you don't get a chance to fact check it, especially on our end, where, say, for example, another news agency posts a story based on a tweet or a Facebook post they see. We're under pressure now. We have to get it up. We have to compete. But what if that statement isn't true? And it's our responsibility to fact check, but on the other side, for the average Joe who's out there reading a Facebook post or a tweet or sees something on Instagram, they're not necessarily going to look to see whether or not it's true. They're going to spread it, and they're going to take it as truth. Just look at any celebrity death hoax that you may have seen on Facebook in the last 30 days. Once it's shared, it gets shared again. That's the problem with social media, is that there's not enough fact-checking done on the front end by those who are looking at it. The good part about social media, though, is the accessibility, is that politicians are more accountable, but also it gives politicians as well as news media another outlet to spread whatever message it is. Politicians can campaign. They can let people know, hey, this is what we're working on. For those of us in the news media, for people who want 24-hour news access, we can put a story on Facebook, on Twitter. Get it immediately. That way you're not waiting till 5 or 6 o'clock. It has its advantages, But there's some days where I wonder whether the negatives outweigh those advantages because people will take something they see at face value and not fact check it. And as Bruce said, it spreads like wildfire, and there's nothing we can do after that.
Michael, social media always is rising in importance. Good thing, bad thing, your view?
Well, I don't know that it's a good or a bad thing. It's kind of just there. You know, we have effectively created with social media a town hall meeting that never ends, and it's a 24/7 scenario. So at any time during the day, if you're wanting to find out what's going on in the world, most people might turn on the TV, but a few of us still go to social media first to see, okay, what's the breaking news that hasn't made it yet? We've seen so many things, and Ian referenced, you got to hurry up and compete with social media, get the news out there, because the professional news organizations generally have a vetting process that takes a little bit of time, but you can get news a whole lot faster now, and not always news. Sometimes it's fake news, sometimes it's the phishing scams that you hear about where you click on something and it says, oh, you managed to log out of your Gmail account, please log in again, and they're stealing your information. So you do have to be careful with what's out there. Speaking specifically to what's going on in social media, I think, what was it, maybe a year and a half ago, we saw something we had, as far as I know, never seen before. We saw someone run for the 3rd Congressional District who was not a politician, and they showed up and they blew up. How many people do we have running? 8 people running. Some of them were professional politicians that have been going through the motions for years that were not able to compete with that. And it was all based upon social media campaign, videos on YouTube and things like that. And he did very well, and I think that's kind of an indication of where things are going.
Well, let's talk about accountability. So to what extent, one of the negatives that we noticed of social media and its potential impact in different campaigns is the advent of fake news or spreading things that aren't true. To what extent should people who use social media be responsible for what they say on social media? And I think we have some interesting perspectives here, so let's start from Amy. So what do you think?
I think that there is no accountability. And that's what is, from my perspective, and I know I sit in a different position than anybody else on this panel in that I run campaigns. I'm actually working with the candidates. And, you know, I often say that the anonymity of an avatar is probably one of the most dangerous things that have happened in the American political discourse. There are people that, without a doubt, you know, that deserve the things that are said about them. But there are so many things that are thrown out there that become what you guys talk about, these runaway rumors that are not true. They are never going to be substantiated, and yet they're said with callousness, casualness, often vindictive meanings behind them, but there's no accountability for what is said. You know, I unfortunately, and I'm very fortunate to have had a lot of success in my career, and yet at the same time walk away from a lot of races feeling a little bit disgusted lately, not so much in the candidate that I've worked for, but in what they had to endure and what their family had to endure without any repercussion to what is said. It's real easy to put things out there when there is nothing that will be holding you accountable for what is said and the destruction that it may cause, true or not. You know, and how does that change? I don't know, because it's the Wild West. There's no other way to term it. You know, what is happening, the advent of the internet absolutely is the Wild West. You can't monitor it. It's not like in elections where you have TV, where there's committees that are looking at it, and you absolutely can have commercials taken down, and you can sue for that. I mean, most of the time that what you're looking at is things that are put out there that you don't even know who's saying it. So, you know, you're fighting. They talk about, you know, the dark web. Well, you're fighting dark entities in this day and age, that there is no accountability. And I'm going to tell you, it's dangerous, because we're electing people based on a lot of times unsubstantiated facts. You know, I love that Amy said it's up to the citizens to do their homework. They don't. They're not going to. We much prefer the rumor. We much prefer, the old it leads. We much prefer the idea that it's bad before ever looking to see if it's good or if it's true. And that has put us in a very divided country, and we're seeing it every day on almost every issue. And frankly, going from where I'm at, it's scary.
If I can jump in here to piggyback off what Amy says, people will email or call the newsroom and say, why don't you report good news? Why don't you report on this? Why don't you report on that? The fact of the matter is, we put a story, some salacious, scandalous story or something about the president on Facebook or website, it gets more hits than the good news. People want good news, but they like to hear the bad stuff too. Remember the song, Look at All These Rumors Surrounding Me Every Day? I just need some time to get away. That's what I feel like working in the news sometimes, because you hear all of this stuff and you see the negativity and it does get to you. But that's what people truly deep down inside want. They can talk about, oh, you don't do enough good news, or hey, look, little Johnny did this at school. Yeah, that's fine. But at the end of the day, people want to see all the bad stuff. That's why people watch the A Block and then will flip over to Sports Center. I remember,
Ian, can I ask you, does the news media, the formal news media, have a specific responsibility, though, to fact check things that are going on? Like when a rumor becomes a story and you report on it, do you have a responsibility to say what the facts are as you see them?
Yes, we do. That is our responsibility, and that's why we exist. We'll get a tip on Facebook, whether it's from Michael, because Michael sent me tips before. Amy has as well. I think I've received news tips from everybody on this panel at some point. Before we run with it, we've got to vet it. We have to figure out, is it truthful? Is it newsworthy? Those two aren't mutually exclusive. And that's the big part. We have to be that clearinghouse to figure out what's true and what's most important for the community and what truly affects the lives of the people who are relying on us to bring them the news, to bring them the information that will shape and affect their lives. I remember just 12 years ago when Facebook was practically an infant on the internet, you had to have a college email account to even be part of Facebook, to even register. There are some days where I wish Facebook would go back to that, where you had to have either a college or professional email address to be on it, where no political advertising were allowed on it, where the only Facebook groups allowed were for common beliefs. Say, for example, if you're a New Orleans Saints fan, you could form a group for that. Or if you're a member of the College Republicans, you could create and join a group of that. I would like to see Facebook be what it once was, a place of intellectual discussion, not MySpace Lite, which is what it is now.
Bruce, let's ask you, does government have a role in this, cleaning up the false news or addressing that in any way? Is that appropriate?
I think we're beyond that point. I can recall when I was in news, I spent almost 2 decades in broadcast journalism back in the late 60s and the 70s. And back then it was very easy to control the media because everything was locally owned. If you had an issue with the local media reporting something, you called Dick Dockham over the advertiser, Tom Piers at Channel 10, or called Channel 3, who was back then? Bill Patton. And that's the way you got things done. You could control it from a very local perspective. No longer the case. It spreads so quickly that you cannot capture within a short amount of time any form, and I hesitate to use the word censorship, but that's what you'd have to resort to. Censorship is not the answer. I was mentioning to Letitia, when a reporter's story is dependent upon the number of clicks that it attracts, that's a real concern. Okay? Amy is involved in the recall petition on the city marshal. That should be capturing a lot of attention for various reasons. But I think the attention that she received from it was because here was another politician that got caught in the act. That was the point. The issues or the facts behind the story, I don't believe really got across to the community. As an elected official, and this is my 3rd term, I'm very careful and I'm also very uncomfortable with 3 cameras on me here. Everything I say and do is going to be held for posterity, whether or not I like it. So I'm very deliberate in what I put on my Facebook page. I'm very deliberate what I say at the council meetings because they are recorded and they are accessible on AOC. Everything is out there, and I cannot call it back. So it's changing the whole world of politics as it existed when I first ran in 2004. You have to be very, very careful as to how you conduct your very public life. Once you've said it, you can't take it back, so you better say it right.
Amy, you were referenced in Bruce's talk.
Well, look, I'm not here today to speak to the recall issue, but one thing that I'll mention is that it's not just the news organizations that you have to be careful about. Anyone can be a reporter now with a Facebook page. And Michael and I sometimes go head-to-head on our different Facebook pages. His being the Lafayette Citizens Against Taxes, and mine being a counter page, which is Lafayette Citizens for Truth and Taxation, which is what I'm actually here representing today. And we saw a need to counter some of the things that we saw on his page occasionally. And we wanted to counter that with what we, and I'm just gonna be honest here today, Michael. We're trying to be friendly,
Am I
but
going to have to be a referee for you too?
There's a reason. There's a space between us. We saw some what we felt were very outlandish posts at times, and it caught my eye. And I said, "These are." What caught my eye about it was not so much that they were outlandish. There was no backup. There was no proof. They were just posts that, and there were thousands of people that like this page and follow these posts and vote no to the school tax based on posts that have little to no proof attached to them. And I thought, how irresponsible for a community to vote on things that have no proof. So it was a slow time at work. It was off tax time. Boss, you're in the room, so it was not tax time. And we decided to create this page, and we decided to take on a lot of the posts. And what I really want to get down to is that there are problems with our local government. There are lots of things we can address. Bruce and I talk about things all the time, and we've spoken about Brian Pope in this room, and that's there are problems with his, who just off the top of my head, he doesn't report to anybody. That's something we need to address, right? Going forward with when we do have a new marshal. But he doesn't give us a chance to address any of the things that might really be wrong, because his page rather, picks things that are not wrong. So I took the time out of my schedule, and I spent a lot of time at LCG over the last 6 months, meeting with Lori Tubes, who is the CFO for LCG, and that woman spent hours going over how to read the budget when things I didn't understand didn't make any sense to Michael's page either. But the difference between us was that I took the time to go find somebody who would explain it to me. She went back over 20 years of budgets that are not accessible to the public through the website, but are accessible to anybody who wants to take the time and go get them. And she taught me how to read the budgets and taught me how to go get any kind of information that I wanted. And I know that not every citizen is going to take the time to do that, and not all of us can learn every single thing that happens at LCG, and not every one of us has the time to learn every process. But between all of us, we could certainly learn all of it, and it's our responsibility as citizens to do that and to learn our local government. It just is.
Amy, perhaps we could go to Michael and give him a chance at this point. Now, Amy, you have to admit you have a little advantage. You work in a CPA office, and we're not all CPAs, right? But
my boss can answer for me. I do not know anything about taxes. I don't have anything to do with real taxes.
okay. Well, hopefully your boss does.
Yeah, but my boss does not help me with the page whatsoever. He doesn't.
All right. Michael?
Well, just real quick, I'm sorry, All right. Just wanted to clarify the page you're referring to. It's not technically my page. It's a group effort. I'm just one contributor who doesn't mind being public. The fact that I live in St. Martin Parish might be an advantage to that. We have folks here in Lafayette that are involved in government. They're involved in education, and they see things that happen, and just like the tips that you guys get. We get tips of things that go on inside the system, and someone has to break them because it doesn't come out in the news media. And that's kind of the thing. So we have a large number of people involved, and a large number of them don't want to necessarily be known because they fear reprisal. So just to clarify, it's still not my page. I'm not the ad man. I'm just a contributor. But I'm here because I'm probably the most known person involved, and that's why that is. So what are we? We're talking about the accountability piece.
Yes. Yeah, we're saying, people get on social media and say can anything be done about that? Does
Right.
media have a role to do that? Paid media, what about government? Does that have a role? Should there be a self-policing role?
Okay. And I want to say Amy had mentioned something about documents online too. So a lot of the things that are released on the page actually refer almost chapter and verse to public available documents that anybody sitting at their computer that can read the message can click on or can do some limited amount of research to go to the LCG or even Google the LCG website or the Lafayette Parish School Board website and find that information. So one of the things that one of the guys in the group says, what the amazing thing about what we're doing is we're showing the public what is going on in these government institutions using the government institutions' own documents. And many times a lot of these institutions will come back and say, well, that's not true. And then we'll say, well, we'll have a screenshot of a document with the piece highlighted saying, it's that not what this says. So a lot of that kind of stuff comes right out of those public documents. Amy's right. These documents, some of these are 500 pages long. And I know the Lafayette Parish School Board does not release a single one of their budgets so far is not computer searchable. So you can't hit Control F on your keyboard and search. They're all flattened into JPEGs. They're like photographs. You have to manually read each and every one of them if you want to find out what's going on. And that's been problematic. So accountability-wise, I believe social media sprung up as a result of things like what we were talking about earlier. Well, there's a news item that comes out. Well, I'm going to call the local TV station. I'm going to call the local newspaper, and we're going to have a conversation about it. Maybe they won't run it. That's kind of gone out the window now. You can't do that anymore. And social media can hold the news media accountable. At the same time, it can get out of control. The Wild West was brought up, and I agree. Is there anything that can be done to fix these issues? I don't know. It's amazing when someone has a bit of anonymity that a lot of information comes out that normally you wouldn't see. So maybe the solution is, who is everybody?
Well, let's ask a slightly different question. I think social media has prompted a lot of participation. I guess the question is that a good thing? Is this better for our life together, our community, to have the kind of participation that's going on social media right now? Or is it getting to the point where it's a net negative effect, where people are trolling each other, where people are signing on to narratives that sound good to their biases but aren't in fact factual? Who wants to start that? Let's see, start with Amy.
Well,
So do you think it's a net positive or a net negative?
I think
at
it's
this
a net
point?
positive. We saw after the last election where the renewals and the rededication were actually passed because people wanted to know the truth. We saw a lot of people who didn't understand what the renewals and the rededication were. They were presented to them as new taxes and were misled in a lot of directions. And the people that were interested in knowing the truth came to us, asked us questions. We provided the truth, and there are a lot of people who want to know the truth. Unfortunately, we can't hand deliver to everyone's door the truth, and I'll go back to personal responsibility, that it is everyone's responsibility to do your research and know what you're voting on, be a responsible voter. But, when you're voting on something, an initiative, know the truth about it. Do your reading, go to multiple sources, I can really respect somebody that votes differently than me. I don't have a problem with that. But just know why you're voting the way that you're voting. I just want people to be informed voters. That's all. Just being an informed voter. So I
Ian?
think it's a net positive.
Ian, is social media making people informed voters?
Yes and no. It depends on how you take it. If you're stuck in your echo chamber, then it's not. But if you're actually visiting other pages and taking into account what other people have to say, if you look at Amy's page, if you look at Michael's page, you take the information, you make an informed decision based on what's there and on your own research, then yes, it's absolutely making us a more informed citizenry. I think it has a net positive, not just on being better voters, but at the same time, we're able to see what kind of people we have here in our community. I think there are a lot of people who get on social media, Facebook particularly, who forget that their profiles aren't necessarily private, and they'll post something that may be objectionable, for lack of a better phrase. They may say something that they never intended to be public. And I think that helps us get a grasp on what challenges our community is facing. Politics aside, we've got a long way to go and some strides to make in this community with regards to just being better people. And Facebook is a very good barometer of where we are in this community just from a human relations standpoint. That is where I feel the net positive truly comes in, is because Facebook is a good mirror on our society and helps us show where we are and how far we need to go to be a better community and to be better people within our community.
Well, if that be the case, looking at your page by itself, Ian, we're a marathon away from being good people. You know, honestly, it is a net negative right now in the worst possible way. I mean, let's call it like it is. We're more divided as a country than we've ever been. And the fact that people go on to social media pages and say the things that they say, there are people that I've known my entire life that I honestly, if they walked in the store, I don't know if I could look at them in the eye because of things that they have written publicly. And you know, we can dance around it and we can be polite, but anybody that knows me knows I'm about as blunt as you can get. And I will tell you, we are in trouble. The way that we are acting under, like I said, under an avatar is absolutely ridiculous. We have lost the way to civilly communicate with one another. We go at it. We say things that I'm telling you, if some of these people believe the stuff that they put on the internet in their hearts, why do we even leave our houses? It's disgusting. And you know, I mean, and if Ian is right in saying that this gives us the pulse of our community, the 9th best place to live in the United States, we got a long way to go. And I'll tell you, working from when I work on both political and 25% of my business is political. The rest is on the corporate side. And I get to see a lot with so many brands. I get to see a lot in terms of working these elections. And guys, I don't care how you couch it, it's ugly. And both Amy and Michael, you brought up the fact of the people that are on your page. I mean, you started by saying that there are people that want to be anonymous, and then ended your last thought by saying that, you know, we won't be able to have accountability in people until people are actually out there and we know who they are. I'm going to tell you right now, as long as there are organizations where you can't go into a group and see who the administrators of the page are, there's a problem. When one person is the one that is standing up in front and becomes the voice for something, but you don't know who the people are that are behind the great big mask of Oz, there is a problem. So we can call it however we want and we can try and be polite, but is it a net positive or a net negative? If we can't look outside right now and see the divide that exists in this United States of America and the fact of how divided this great republic is, shame on us.
Well, Amy, let me ask you, during the battle for the school tax, we were being given direct information from school teachers who said, our school is half empty. Why aren't they talking about my half-empty school? Why are they always talking about these portable classrooms in these schools that they're intentionally overcrowding? And we were sent photos of empty schools. We were sent photos of waste, thrown away ink cartridges that teachers would love to have. Now, I can't let people know who those folks are because they'll lose their job, and that's kind of the challenge we're in with this scenario. We have a lot of people that are involved that are working with us, but if it came out that they were getting information out to the public, they genuinely would have to fear for their livelihoods.
And are those the people running your page?
We have a few, yes.
It's a tough situation, Michael, I admit, because you don't want anybody to be in a position to lose a job because of a position. But I'll tell you this, and you and I both know this, we're not talking about teachers that are the only ones that are out there. There are a lot of people that hide behind anonymity and shouldn't be. If you're going to be in a page and in public discourse, you need to be willing to come forward with that.
And we've seen more and more of this. We really have. There are a lot of folks that create a Facebook page that are even commenting on the tax page we have. There are quite a few, and no one knows who these folks are. And every now and then we get somebody that guesses who they might be, but we really don't know. Some of them use like real sounding names, and some of them use funny names, but that is definitely going on.
Let's ask Bruce. Bruce, in terms of local government, has social media been good, been bad to you guys? Do you appreciate it? Do you think, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
I embrace it. On the negative side, it's very single issue oriented, not in my backyard, and in some instances on the local level, although not as much as on the state and national, it's party politics. But it does bring to light the issues that are of interest. What concerns me is that they just look at the headlines. And I mentioned the city marshal. And by the way, I realized I mentioned Marshal Pope's name, I think, for the first time publicly today. With me, it's not a matter of Marshal Pope. It's a matter of the marshal's office. That office has been conducted in the same manner with the same financial benefits prior to Marshal Pope. It's been going on for decades. It's an issue that needs to be addressed, and it's going to be addressed. But having said that, the positive side, it's kind of like people bring issues out, generates interest, and I hope that interest evolves into participation in the electoral process. It's embarrassing that the first election on that property tax renewal that we had what, 9% of the voters turn out? And of that 9%, 5% voted against it. Okay, that is not the majority of the registered voters in Lafayette Parish. When it came up again, legally, for a second chance, we had 13% show up. Come on, folks. Impressive increase in voter participation, but 13%? A successful election today, 45% turnout? That's frightening. And yet when something goes wrong with government, when a public official behaves in an improper manner, participates in a function that does not bring any other than negative interest to his office, what do they go? We got to call him out of office. Well, how are you going to call somebody out of office if you don't vote? And if you don't like the person that's running for office, why aren't you running? Believe me, try it. It's quite an experience. Until we get past the 50% margin of the registered voters in any election, we are not successful as a society. We have to have a mandate of the people. I got elected the last time around by 44 votes. But even with that amount, I did not have the majority of the constituents in my district voting for me. So am I to be their voice? I intend to be, but they did not elect me because of a mandate. 45 votes is not a mandate, folks. And we just need to have people to participate in the process. And don't only show up at a meeting where you want to find out what am I going to do about cleaning your drainage canal. Well, it takes more than just one channel to solve the problem. Get involved. What do you mean you're going to put that road behind my house? Well, you're the one that's complaining about the traffic congestion. Get involved. It's more than a single issue. Look at the whole picture.
You know, the belief of our ancestors was that good information would win out, and that in the contest of ideas, that the best ideas would win, and that people would see that. Do you think that that's the case today, or do we need to change education about social media? Do you think that the best ideas are still making it on the social media front, or are just the most inflammatory ideas the ones that are making
Pearson,
it?
may I take that first?
Sure.
That level of education begins with the politicians in office. Too many elected officials serving today do not understand the issues. They too ran on single issue politics. They too were influenced by political partisanship. Until we educate that level of our community, it's going to have to be a trickle-down effect. But we're putting people in office today who have no clue. I'm the exception.
Exception
we
noted.
really need to get some buy-in at all levels, not just in the community, it's the people who serve the community.
Well, when it comes to education, it's a slow conversion. I really believe that. I think that there are people that get it and they are 100% in, and then, and I speak more to, my generation and older. And then you have others that just don't want to mess with it. I think what we need to do is focus on the generations that are coming behind us. The scary thing is they know more than us when it comes to this. They really do. So education, I don't know. I truly at this point think that people want to know when it comes to social media what they want to know. And they want to believe what they want to believe. And, I love listening to Amy Robinson talk because I think that your ideas are what we wish happened. The sad reality is that it's not reality. The scariest thing to me is when a 60-year-old learns how to share. When they learn how to share on Facebook, danger ensues.
So maybe we should make social media an age-related item. You age, I don't know, you age out. You can't do it anymore or something.
Let's hope not.
Amy, do you want to tackle this? Is there any cure for this kind of?
Wait a second, excuse me. You
Yes.
just knocked out most of the people in this.
Well, it's definitely not age-related. My dad is very young. He's 62 this year, and he does not do well on social media, but my mother knocks it out of the park. So that age, but then I see young people who don't do well with it. So age is irrelevant in this factor. Again, it goes back to personal responsibility, and you just have to make a pledge to yourself that you are going to pass on factual information. So take a minute before you share and make sure that it's factual. And social media can be a great tool, and a lot of us use it for to keep in touch with family across the United States, and that's its best its best attribute. As far as sharing the things that we do share politically, it has so many things that we could be doing with it. And I want to encourage all of you to stop paying attention to so much on a national level and even a little bit on the state level, because there's only so much that you can affect on those levels. Right here at home in your very own village is where you all can make such a difference. And when you're doing something by yourself, it's a whole lot of work. But when there's a lot of people helping you, then it's a lot less work. So just think about all of the things that everybody could accomplish, just even all of the people in this room together, if we worked together. I know that on a local level, we all want the same things. We all want great schools. We all want great roads. We all want great things for our community, right? And so that transcends party lines. We don't need to know what political affiliation we need for those things. So we can all work together to get those things done. Do we necessarily agree on the taxing structure? But no, but we know that money has to come in. We know that we need money to get those things done. We know that we want those things for our community. Together we could get those things done if we just worked together, shared good information, and got involved with our community. And you don't have to go to council meetings, which there is one tonight at 5:30 at City Hall, 7:05, y'all. And I tend to be there. Bruce will tell you he is not my council person, but I bother him more than my own council person. I do tend to be at every council meeting because I think that as a citizen, you should try to make as many of them as you can. I understand that people have kids and family and all of that good stuff, but you should try to make one every once in a while, and you will be surprised at what you will find out about your community when you go to one. They also stream on AOC, so you can watch it there. You can go read the agenda and see what's going on, because a lot of these things that you find out about after the fact will surprise. They were on the agenda, and you could have gotten with your council person and said, hey, I don't think I like this. And you could have spoken to your council person in great big groups. You could have said, hey, I don't think I like this. And you might have made a difference before it even came up for a vote. So there's lots of ways to get involved right here. And all of that, we share that on our social media page. But those are all things that you could be sharing with all of your friends and saying, hey, this is coming up for a vote. I encourage you to get in touch with your council person and let them know that you don't agree with this. So there's lots of ways on social media that you could affect your village right here at home.
Ian?
Can you restate your question just to make sure I'm answering the right one?
Well, we were talking about, can anything be done? What kind of positive thing can be done to make social media more fact-based, less trolling, more responsive to, the realities?
Media literacy education. I'm a product of the St. Landry Parish school system. Some of you might snicker and like, St. Landry Parish, someone got out alive? And there's at least one other person in here who my dad taught at Eunice High. I won't name him, but he knows who he is. I'm a product of the St. Landry system. I grew up in a house with an educator. I remember in 4th through 8th grade, and as part of our English and reading language arts lessons, we were taught very basic media literacy, how to identify fact from opinion, how to identify propaganda, how to identify red herrings, and so on and so forth. I never thought I would need it, but now in this era of so-called fake news of social media, you have to be able to identify what is fact from opinion, what is propaganda, what are red herrings, and the like. And it's something that I'm seeing with younger generations. They don't know how to identify fact from opinion. They don't know how to identify what is a news story versus what is commentary. And that is where we are right now. Our education system has to make a concerted effort of teaching children, I don't want to use the phrase millennials because it's beyond that, those who are growing up in this era of social media, of 300 cable and satellite channels, how to identify what is news, what is fact, what is opinion, what is commentary, what is propaganda. If you can't identify the material that you are being fed, you're already at a disadvantage. Beyond that, we have to do a better job in our school system of teaching civics, of teaching American government, of teaching the Constitution. I know we were on an AOC Love Fest a second ago. Ray Green, who has been around AOC forever, managed to get Senator Paige Cortez to pass a bill last year changing how civics is taught. I don't remember if you have to take a final exam on it now or if it's a semester. I forget the specifics. But at the very least, we're now finally realizing that civics is important. If you want to function as a citizen in this society, you have to understand how government works. You have to understand the framework the Constitution imposes. That is something that we don't have, or at least children aren't paying attention to in school. If we want a more responsible citizenship, people who are using social media and all media more responsibly, we have to teach media literacy and we have to teach civics, not just for a semester, but for a full year in high school. It should be required and it should be taught as one of the more important subjects in school with your reading, writing, arithmetic. I know it's not going to happen overnight. Right now, we're just hoping that people who comment on our Facebook page will be grammatically correct when asking, will Iberia Parish schools be closed tomorrow? But it's beyond teaching social media. It's teaching full media literacy and teaching civics, the Constitution, and the framework and the importance of the First Amendment and all of the rest of the Constitution.
Michael?
Yeah, man, that's great stuff. The civics is, I think, one of the big things too that is really lacking in our school system. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's just not on the test.
Because it's taught by coaches.
I guess I was one of the fortunate ones. I didn't.
How many of you had your civics class taught by a coach? Right? Yeah. Mhm.
I guess I was one of the lucky ones. I didn't have a coach. But in my defense, there are some coaches out there who do a pretty doggone good job with it because they understand it. In one case at Beauchamp, we had one coach who taught civics who was a veteran. I forget of which war. I forget what Coach Doug Stewart, may the Lord rest his soul, served in the Army. So he knew about it from a first-hand experience. So let's not give coaches a bad rap here.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't remember a lot of the names of the teachers that I had going through school, but I remember it was ninth grade or 8th grade. I think it was 8th grade we did civics. It was Mr. Brooks, and he left a very strong opinion or strong influence that government was something that you had to understand to operate in. So I certainly agree 100% with that. Now, how do we fix social media? I believe in free market capitalism. I believe that social media will respond. I think that people will respond. We're going to work this out. I don't know that it's going to be any one solution or any one thing, but a little bit here, a little bit there. We're going to inch things closer. Facebook tried it a while back. They failed miserably. They're going to try something else soon enough. Twitter has tried. They're marking folks who they believe are legitimate news sources on Facebook, on Twitter with the verified icons. So if you see that little blue check mark next to someone, they should be deemed as relatively trustworthy. Although with a lot of the latest news items and fake news coming out, sometimes it's hard to know for sure. Reading through things, a lot of times news reports, I'll ask questions as I'm going through that don't get answered. They'll intentionally leave out bits of details. I was having a conversation with someone here earlier. Blue Checkmark website put out a news item about Russian interference in the election recently, and the piece they left out was all of the advertising that was done on Facebook wasn't until after the election. Well, that's a pretty good piece of information you might want to find out while you're reading the news article. So it is still very difficult, even with verifiable news sources, to get solid information. But I think we're making progress, and we'll get there.
And Pearson?
Yeah.
I think it's up to each of us as individuals to be informed. In Lafayette Parish, in our Lafayette Consolidated Government, we are probably, I'd say we are the most transparent government you're going to find in Louisiana today. You can go to our website, lower right-hand corner, it says upcoming council meetings agenda. You can see everything that's on the agenda, and you can drill into that agenda and get all of the details that's on our packet. Why is that important? That way you can better understand the issues. And as Amy says, come to a council meeting sometimes and listen to the people who are there to testify either for or against. Listen to the members of the council comment on the issues. That's a learning process. But perhaps today is an example of what we do once a month where I think I learn more than any other occasion, is when we have an open mic, is what it is, where anyone in the community can come up and address the council on any issue that's not on the agenda. And sometimes that is the first occasion where I may hear something that sparks my interest and something on which I can follow up, or the council can. So it's a matter of you as individuals getting involved. Make the effort to be informed. You don't have to come to the council office. Get online, watch streaming, watch the pre-recorded program, look at our agenda, drill down into it, send us emails. We need to hear from you. But if I'm going to hear from anyone, I want an informed person making a response, because then they have the validity of their thought process based on homework, and that's important. You have to know what you're talking about.
Well, Bruce, I think you've had the last word. We are coming up to the hour, and so we want to stay on schedule. I want to thank all the panelists who have come and helped us out today. Michael Lunsford, Amy Robinson, Ian Ozan, Amy Jones, and Bruce Conk. Thank you so much for providing this forum.
Pearson, before we go, if I can say it quickly, you may notice the 3 cameras in the back. The Acadiana Open Channel is here filming today. I've been associated with AOC for nearly 20 years now. AOC was the original social media here in Lafayette Parish. Before there was Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, you could go there and get your voice out. That still exists, folks. AOC is an underutilized tool in our community. If you've got something you want to say, don't hide behind an avatar. Get on camera for 26 or 54 minutes or whatever it is over there and speak your mind. Use AOC as your open forum. It is there. We're paying for it through our cable bills. Make use of it. Let AOC be your voice in the community, or let it share your voice. I had to get that cheap plug in for Ed and the company in here.
No, I think that's good, and I'm sure they appreciate that.
That too.
All right, thank you very much.